Hello, I'm Jim Snyder Grant, Chair of the Acton Select Board, and I'm here with John Capetta, the Chair of the Acton Planning Board. We're here to talk about Article 11, the Assabet River Overlay District and Powder Mill Zoning District. We'll hear a presentation and then we'll do some Q&A.
Hello, my name is John Capetta, and I am the Chair of the Acton Planning Board. I will be walking us through Article 11, Amend Zoning Bylaw and Zoning Map, Assabet River Overlay District and Powder Mill Zoning District. Over the past 3 years, we have been working with the town of Maynard to achieve a shared community vision to make the Powder Mill Road corridor a destination rather than a pass-through. I will be sharing the primary action items for implementing the Powder Mill Road corridor initiative. Number 1, a proposed to amend the zoning bylaw and map by creating the Assabet River Overlay District. And 2, prohibiting vehicle sale and rental in the base Powder Mill zoning district, connecting Maynard, Acton, and West Concord. The Powder Mill Road corridor consists of approximately 1 mile in Maynard and a half-mile in Acton. In Acton, we have High Street that intersects with Powder Mill Road. Some notable sites are the Stop and Shop Plaza, the Human Services Center, and the site of the permitted Powder Mill Apartments. The Assabet River also runs along the corridor in Acton, which is currently only publicly accessible via the canoe launch. To orient folks, this is a photo of what currently exists along the corridor at this point. As you can see, much of the area consists of car-oriented and industrial-type uses. The multi-year community engagement process has fostered the creation of a long-term community-oriented strategy for the corridor to guide how future growth occurs. Phase 1 of the project studied existing conditions and sought feedback from residents, business owners, property owners, and town officials about their vision for the future of the corridor. These conversations were incorporated into the report, Connect Powder Mill Road, and that was released in the spring of 2022. We are now in Phase 2, which is focused on implementation of the goals and vision for the corridor through the zoning standards that are proposed in Article 11. Based on the vision created through community engagement, there are a number of goals for the Assabet River Overlay District. The Overlay Zoning District considers existing development patterns and ensures that new construction complements the existing buildings and landscape. Environmental standards in the proposed zoning accompany existing wetland and stormwater regulations and aim to increase the environmental quality of the Assabet River. The overlay zoning also promotes the creation of more diverse housing options and small businesses to meet the needs of current and future residents, business owners, and other stakeholders. In addition, transportation safety and access are prioritized as developments occur, with an emphasis on creating new opportunities to walk, bike, or roll to local destinations. Based on the community goals for the corridor, the first action item that helps achieve those goals is the creation of the Assabet River Overlay District. Overlay zoning districts lie on top of the base zoning districts and offer an alternative set of standards. They are used to tailor standards to a unique neighborhood, such as the Powder Mill Road corridor. Overlay districts are a more flexible, incentive-based approach to zoning that lift barriers to development that the community wants to see based on feedback. This overlay district is optional, which means that property owners can choose to follow the base zoning or they can choose to follow the overlay zoning, but they cannot mix and match. Like base zoning districts, overlay districts only apply to new development. The Assabet River Overlay District is comprised of two separate but compatible sub-districts. Sub-District A follows most of the properties along Powder Mill Road, fostering smaller-scale mixed-use buildings with first-floor commercial to encourage pedestrian activity and connection with the river. This sub-district also promotes commercial uses that are compatible with the riverfront and incentivizes environmentally sensitive redevelopment. Sub-District B is located on the northern portion of Powder Mill Road, including the larger parcels off of Sudbury Road. This sub-district allows commercial buildings with larger footprints that incorporate pedestrian-friendly design, supports sustainable employment opportunities, and encourages uses that meet needs of residents and visitors of the area. The dimensional regulations of both subdistricts were specifically tailored to achieve the community's goals for each area. Subdistrict A allows for smaller lots, buildings closer to the street, and roughly three-story buildings to really foster that neighborhood business feel. As stated before, commercial would be required on the ground floor, and then either residential or commercial would be allowed on second and the third stories. Subdistrict B allows for larger lots to mimic the existing sizes of lots in this sub-district, buildings still closer to the street than what's there now, but further back than Sub-District A, and 3.5-story buildings. Residential is not allowed by right in Sub-District B to promote the goal of creating commercial centers. Regulations such as the minimum open space requirement and the maximum height, and other site-specific factors such as wetland setbacks, floodplain district requirements, and groundwater protection district requirements will regulate the total building square footage on each site. Therefore, there is no maximum floor area ratio proposed. In addition to dimensional requirements, there are a number of other regulations that buildings utilizing the overlay district will be required to meet based on the goals of the corridor. The purpose of these requirements is to improve the pedestrian experience along the corridor. These include variations in the front facade, visual breaks between the ground floor and the upper stories, different trims and details, window coverage for ground floors, building coverage along the front of a lot, landscaping and trees in the front yard setback, sidewalks, and river access. All of these different requirements will help to make this area a destination where folks will want to visit and stay rather than just drive through. To visually show what is possible in the 13 or so parcels in Subdistrict A, the Neighborhood Business Subdistrict, here are two possible scenarios. Scenario 1 shows where some decides to build a 3-story, 100% commercial building. This would be allowed in the overlay zoning district. In scenario 2, there is a commercial requirement on the ground floor, and the residents are allowed on the 2 floors above. This is also allowed in the overlay district. No matter what, the minimum requirement is commercial on the ground floor, and there is no scenario in Subdistrict A that would be 100% residential. Subdistrict B does not allow residential by right. For the 6 parcels located in this subdistrict, the scenario we will see is 100% commercial. Multifamily is allowed by a use special permit, but that would require a public hearing with the Select Board to approve, and that is not guaranteed. What is allowed by right are the larger scaled commercial uses that can benefit the larger neighborhood. The highlight and primary focus of this overlay district is a currently underutilized resource in Acton, the Assabet River. The goal is to provide access to the Assabet River while aiming to increase environmental quality along the river. Lots located along the river would be required to provide some sort of access to the river, whether that be a walkway or maybe a seating area. In addition, buildings are required to be sited to enhance and create views of the Assabet. All lots in the overlay would be required to provide Level 2 EV chargers for 10% of residential parking spaces. Buildings constructed would need to meet a low emitting materials requirement from LEED to reduce concentrations of chemical contaminants that can damage air quality and the environment, and to also protect the health of those building and living in the overlay district. In addition, at least one green stormwater tool, such as tree box filters, must be used on the site to help manage stormwater. Chapter X, the town's stormwater bylaw, will still apply, but this will be an extra requirement for green stormwater management due to the proximity of the river. We heard from the community a lot of concerns about the amount of car dealerships that are located down in the Powder Mill area. And based on this feedback, and also taking into consideration the proximity of these lots to the Assabet River, the proposal also includes prohibiting vehicle sales in the base zoning, too. This would mean vehicle sales would not be allowed in the Powder Mill area moving forward. Zoning is a tool that can help achieve the goals of a community. For the Powder Mill Road corridor, Article 11's proposed zoning will help achieve increased river access, improved business growth, and support for small businesses, pedestrian-oriented streetscapes, and diverse housing options. Article 11 strives to guide redevelopment in a way to accomplish the goals the community wants to see along Powder Mill Road.
John, thanks so much for giving such a detailed presentation about Article 11. I wanted to focus in on a few key questions, okay?
Sure.
So I understand that Acton and Maynard have been collaborating for almost 4 years now on the Powder Mills corridor zoning process. How does their zoning match ours, and where are they at in that process?
Because town borders are not visible and the corridor functions as one, the goal for this process was to create a cohesive vision for Powder Mill Road. This vision has been established by the community through the engagement process, and each town's zoning is written to achieve the community's goals. A portion of Maynard's Powder Mill Road zoning will be at their spring town meeting in order to meet the MBTA compliance, while the remainder will be brought to their fall town meeting.
You mentioned MBTA zoning, and looking ahead to Article 12, which is for MBTA zoning, I see that one of the areas zoned for MBTA compliance is along this Powder Mill corridor. And so how does that relate to this article?
The MBTA zoning districts came out of the South Acton Vision and Action Plan, which was kicked off in 2022, and looked at the town comprehensively, with a focus on South Acton. Phase 2 of the Powder Mill Road Corridor Initiative, looking at the zoning for the corridor, also started in 2022. Through both of these planning initiatives, a site was identified along the corridor that made sense for larger scale multifamily. As each zoning proposals began to take shape, Powder Mill focused more on commercial and MBTA focused more on residential. So it made sense to include this location in the MBTA article. While it's not included in Article 11, the goals for the corridor are still addressed for that site in Article 12. as a site where future residents could benefit access to the river while frequenting future commercial uses along Powder Mill Road.
Thanks. Now, I saw that this overlay district is made up of 2 sub-districts. Can you review again what the difference is between those 2 sub-districts?
Sure. The corridor is incredibly unique as there are a lot of different types of existing uses and buildings. The goal of having 2 sub-districts is to create 2 different districts that are compatible in many ways, but they still cater to their unique site conditions. The zoning for Sub-District A fosters smaller scale, mixed-use buildings, with the first floor being commercial, while the zoning for Sub-District B is tailored to desired uses on larger parcels. Both include requirements to improve the pedestrian experience, such as sidewalks, design features, and street trees. And both districts also require gathering spots with seating and shade in convenient locations for those walking and visiting the corridor.
Got it. So you mentioned that this zoning proposal is an overlay district.
Yes.
Can you review what's an overlay district?
Well, overlay districts are really what they sound like. They overlay on top of the existing zoning districts as an additional option. This means that property owners can choose to either follow the base Powder Mill zoning district or this new Assabet River overlay district. Once a property owner chooses which zoning they wish to utilize, they cannot mix and match the standards. To realize the vision established by the community during the engagement, the zoning is being proposed in a way that incentivizes property owners to choose the overlay district when thinking of redevelopment. For example, most who redevelop want greater allowance for on-square footage. So therefore, by allowing increased building square footage in the overlay, builders then are more likely to opt in, while also complying with regulations in the overlay that enhance the corridor, such as pedestrian amenities like shade trees and green stormwater infrastructure. Ultimately, using the zoning will help achieve the community's goals.
The proposal includes prohibiting the use of vehicle sale rental, which must mean car dealerships, in the base zoning district. So what does this mean for existing car dealerships in the district?
That's a good question. Existing car dealerships are protected and can continue operations, but prohibiting the use does further restrict existing car dealerships because they are not allowed to expand without a special permit. On the other hand, if an existing car dealership stops operations for more than 2 years, then it's no longer allowed.
There's an extensive table of uses included in this zoning article. How did those uses get picked? How did you figure out which one was yes or no or special permit required?
Another good question. Uses allowed through this zoning were crafted through the community engagement process and then tailored to each sub-district. For example, Sub-District A incentivizes uses that benefit the people who live and visit the neighborhood regularly, such as retail stores, restaurants. Sub-District B promotes desired uses that are compatible with the existing larger footprints of the lots and buildings. Certain uses, for example, animal boarding, that can be beneficial to the community in both sub-districts, then that would require a special permit because the use's potential impact on the neighbors.
Now, a core goal of this proposal seems to be improving Assabet River quality and access. Can you explain how zoning can be used to achieve this goal?
Sure. When it comes to water quality, this zoning goes beyond typical stormwater management requirements, looking to nature-based solutions for water filtration. Zoning also reduces potential polluted runoff by prohibiting new car dealerships and increasing the opportunities for non-industrial uses that are more sensitive to the river's ecosystem.
Okay, and what about access to the river?
To increase river access, the zoning also includes requirements for any new development along the river to provide viewing areas or pathways.
Great. Well, thanks for walking us through the article. That's all the questions I had. But if you're watching this video, you might have additional questions or comments, so please don't hesitate to contact me at jimsnydergrant@actonma.gov or the planning staff at planning@actonma.gov. And as a final reminder, the Select Board unanimously voted to recommend this article.
Well, thanks, Jim. I appreciate the time with you a lot. And I also wanted to fill you in as the chairman of the planning board. The planning board also voted unanimously to recommend Article 11.
Great. Great talking with you today, John.
Thanks, Jim.